In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, signed by Governor on February 15th, 2022, I announce that this meeting of the Select Board is being recorded by Hadley Media, the Select Board's office via Zoom, and ask if there's anyone present who is also recording this meeting. Let the minutes reflect that no one else has indicated that they are recording this meeting. All right. Public comments. Any public comments?
Anybody on Zoom?
I'm looking.
Any public comments on Zoom?
Please raise your hand if you're on Zoom for public comments. I see none.
All right.
Is Amy coming tonight?
We think so, but
Not in Connecticut, so.
Yeah. we probably hit that. All right, moving along to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, warrants AP 2314 INS, AP 2314, AP 2314B, AP 2314S, AP 2315S, AP 2315, PR 2306, supplemental PR 2307.
Just a question quick before we do that. Were we gonna do minutes at all tonight?
You will have minutes very soon and you will have a large pile of them. Very, very, very soon.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Moving on, 4.1. Kevin Michelson from Save a Buck LLC has applied for a Class 2 auto dealer's license at 8 Pine Hill Road.
I have to abstain from this discussion. Mr. Michelson is a client of mine.
I believe Jennifer has some information for us, but I think after she presents that, we would like to put this off to the next meeting.
Well, I was just gonna say that the application is complete. They have filed with the state. They have a surety bond in place. We did ask them to go to the planning board because Save a Buck has existed as a business for a while, but they've changed how it's incorporated. And now Kevin Michelson will be the owner of the business. And he did go to planning board as requested. And the planning board approved him for one car on site for sale. But it was brought to my attention that there might be an issue with the DPW that y'all need to consider when you're considering the license this evening.
Are there anything outstanding that is owed to the town at this point, or?
As I understand, there's a situation with the driveway. I don't have all the information for. I wasn't able to discuss that with the DPW director today, but perhaps Jane, do you have more information about that?
Only that he has not yet pulled a permit for driveway.
With him having outstanding business with the town for that property, perhaps y'all would find it beneficial to continue this vote or make this vote contingent upon him having his driveway permit with the DPW. It would be y'all's decision.
I'll make a motion for us to grant the permit, the application for the auto dealer's license, if he contingent on his application for the driveway.
And in accordance with the restrictions imposed by the planning board.
Okay.
Yeah, I can second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
And abstained.
Thank you.
Armandi George from Z Motors, who I see on Zoom, has applied for Class 2 auto dealer's licenseship at 249 Russell Street.
Again, Armani, I think can speak to it since he is here. But he has applied. This is a car dealership that was open for a while. It did close for a little bit. They're coming back. It had been over 2 years, so he went to the planning board as well. And the planning board has approved them for 2 vehicles. And Armani, would you like to speak to the select board for a moment? We can't hear anybody. Hold on one second, Armani.
Somebody remind me where 249 Russell is?
It's next
Right
to
before
Hadley.
Hadley, the newest cannabis.
Right before Hadley. Okay. thank
Okay.
you.
Right now?
Armani,
No, hold on. No.
Right near you, Randy?
Yeah, I'm 235, so it's 4 or 5 houses towards the bike path from me.
Huh?
Just a technical difficulty.
it'll make it more exciting. Armani, you're right down the road. You want to just pop down here?
Well, it is.
Okay, you're working.
We hear you. We hear
We
you.
hear you now.
Yep.
Good.
So if you want to make it contingent upon that, but I believe he's okay.
Make a motion to approve a class 2 auto dealer's license for ZG Motors, contingent upon follow-up by Jennifer to make sure that any outstanding items with the town are rectified if they exist. Second.
And 2 vehicles.
And for the 2 vehicles as well. Yeah. Second. Mhm.
Jane?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Those abstentions? Passes unanimous. All right.
Thank you, Armani.
Thank you. Item 4.3, the Attorney General's determination. We're going to read the whole correspondence from the Attorney General, which will then put it in the minutes and make it available to anyone who's dated August 19th, 2022, from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Office of the Attorney General. OML 2022-164. Jeffrey Blake Esquire, KP Law, regarding open meeting law complaint. Dear Attorney Blake, this office has received a complaint from Paula Kazuba on December 15th, alleging that the Hadley Select Board violated the open meeting law GLC 30A, paragraph 18 to 25. The complaint was originally filed with the board on or about July 14th, and you responded on behalf of the board by a letter dated August 19th. The complaint alleges that the board deliberately, outside of a posted meeting regarding whether to reduce the membership of the Hadley Conservation Commission, the commission, and whether to reappoint to the commission Ms. Kazuba and another member, Steve Sinkowitz. We appreciate the patience of the parties while we investigated this matter. Following our investigation and review, we find that the board deliberated outside of a posted meeting by email on one occasion, but do not otherwise find sufficient evidence to conclude that the board deliberated outside of a noticed meeting. In reaching this determination, we reviewed the open meeting law complaint, the board's response, the request for further review, additional documents and information provided by the complainant and the board, and a video recording of the board's meeting held on May 12th and July 7th. We also communicated with counsel for the board on numerous occasions seeking additional information. Finally, we conducted a phone interview with board member Joyce Chung. At the outset, we noted that our review is limited to whether the board violated open meeting law by deliberating outside of a posted meeting. We do not review and take no position on whether the board was authorized or justified in reducing the number of commission members and not reappointing Ms. Kazuba. We find the facts to be as follows. The complaint stems from a July 7th board meeting and events surrounding that meeting, in which the board voted to reduce the membership of the commission and did not reappoint Ms. Kazuba, who had served on the commission for many years and was the commission's chair at the time. The board is a 5-member public body. Therefore, 3 members constitute a quorum. On May 8th and 11th, the board and the board's then chair, David Phil, received 3 emails from citizens expressing frustrations or concern regarding the commission. On May 12th, the board held a meeting and during public comments heard from a citizen regarding his dissatisfaction with the commission. In response, board member Joyce Chunglo asked the citizen to send his concerns to the board in writing and noted that the board was gathering information for future use. Board member John Waskevitz then stated that he watched 2 prior commission meetings and that he believed the commission was having some problems. Mr. Waskevitz also stated that he wished to see the commission membership reduced from 7 members to 5. Ms. Chunglo spoke a few more times briefly, and a few citizens commented regarding the first citizen's complaint. On July 11th, the board posted a notice for a meeting to be held on July 7th at 6 p.m. The notice read, in relevant part, 1. Old business. 7.1. Boards and committees. Annual appointment renewals. Addition. Conservation Commission. Paulette Kazuba, Stephen Sinkowitz. The Select Board will also discuss the lowering of the numbers of members of the Conservation Commission from 7 to 5. On July 6, Ms. Chunglo called Ms. Kazuba and discussed the above noticed topic as it related to the Commission. Although Ms. Kazuba and Ms. Chunglo disagreed about the substance of the conversation, both agreed that the conversation took place. Ms. Kazuba contends that Ms. Chunglo stated that during the call, the board had already decided to reduce the number of commission members, and that therefore there was no reason to reappoint Ms. Kazuba or Mr. Sinkowitz. Ms. Chunglo contends that she did not say that the board had already decided to reduce the commission, but rather that she simply informed Ms. Kazuba that this topic would be discussed at the next day's meeting. On July 7th at 8:56 a.m., board member Shane Nevinsmith emailed the town administrator stating in part, "Attached is from the state regarding conservation commissions. It appears that this is a town meeting issue, not a select board choice. You want me to let David know, or can you do that?" Attached to the email was a document including an excerpt from the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions handbook regarding the size of and changes to the size of conservation commission. The document also included a comment about the creation of the commission. That same day at 3:19 p.m., the town administrator forwarded Ms. Nevinsmith's email to Chair Phil. Mr. Phil then forwarded the email from the town administrator to Mr. Waskevitz at 4:18 p.m. stating, Jane sent to the town administrator. I read that as 3 to 7 members, which we are keeping 5, so we are following town meeting vote. If we need to appoint 7, then we keep Sinky and get rid of Ms. Kazuba and appoint Joe Borsford. On July 7th, the board convened its meeting. In total, there was approximately 1 hour of discussion related to reducing the size of the commission and reappointing Ms. Kazuba and Mr. Sinkowitz. During this time, the board heard from members of the public, the commission, and the commission staff. Members of the board discussed the topic as well. Ms. Nevins-Smith expressed her concern that the board did not have authority to reduce the membership of the commission and advocated that the board not make a decision that evening. Other board members expressed their support for reducing the number of commission members and for not reappointing Ms. Kazuba and Mr. Sinkowitz, specifically noting that they had received complaints about the commission. Throughout the discussion, Ms. Kazuba spoke a few times, and there was back and forth regarding whether the commission had ever been made aware of the complaints that supposedly form part of the basis for reducing the size of the commission and not reappointing Ms. Kazuba and Mr. Sinkowitz. Ultimately, the board voted to reappoint Mr. Sinkowitz, but not Ms. Kazuba, and to reduce the commission by 1 member. Discussion. The open meeting law was enacted to eliminate much of the secrecy surrounding the deliberations and decisions on which public policy is based. That's from Gingalo versus the School Board of Southbridge. The state law in relevant part that, except in an emergency, a public body shall post notice of every meeting at least 48 hours prior to such meeting, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. Except when convened in executive session, all meetings of a public body shall be open to the public. A meeting is defined in relevant part as a deliberation by a public body with respect to any matter within the body's jurisdiction. The law defines deliberation broadly as any oral or written communication through any medium, including electronic mail, between or among a quorum of a public body on any public business within its jurisdiction. ID. A quorum is a simple majority of the members of a public body. ID. In one-way communication from one public body member to a quorum on matters within the body's jurisdiction constitutes deliberation for purpose of the open meeting law, even if no other public body member responds. A public body may not engage in serial communication whereby a quorum communicates in a non-contemporaneous manner outside of a meeting on a subject within the public body's jurisdiction. Holding that private serial communication violates the spirit of the open meeting law and may not be used to circumvent the intent of the law. We find that the board deliberated outside of the notice of the meeting July 7th, when Mr. Phil forwarded Ms. Nevins-Smith's email regarding the board's authority to reduce the size of the commission to Mr. Waskevitz, thus causing the communication to reach a quorum of board. We ordered the board, if it has not already done so, to release to the public the full chain of emails. We received inconsistent explanation from board members regarding whether additional communication concerning the membership of the commission occurred. Although we are concerned that the board may have had further discussion, further discussed the membership of the commission. Following our investigation, we were unable to find sufficient evidence of improper deliberation. We note that, based on correspondence reviewed in the course of our investigation, it appears that Mr. Phil may have had a practice of communicating with board members individually, including by phone, regarding matters within the board's jurisdiction, including discussing upcoming votes in a way that would clearly violate open meeting law. We take this opportunity to remind the board that deliberation is broadly defined as any communication between or among a quorum of the board in any business within its jurisdiction, and that deliberation may only take place during a meeting for which notice has been properly posted and which is open to the public, unless a lawful executive session has been convened. Furthermore, impermissible deliberations can occur in a serial manner, including by calling a quorum of a public body individually to convey the same information or to poll members. Conclusion. For the reasons stated above, we find that the board improperly deliberated by email July 7th, when Chair Phil forwarded an email from one board member to a third board member. We order the board's immediate and future compliance with open meeting law. We caution that similar future violations may be considered evidence of intent to violate the law and may result in the imposition of $1,000 civil penalty for intentional violation. Additionally, we order the board, if it has not already done so, to release the public full chain of July 7th emails that will be attached to this. We now consider the complaint addressed by this determination to be resolved. This determination does not address any other complaints that may be pending with the board or with our office. Please feel free to contact our office, 617-963-2540, if you have any questions regarding this letter. Sincerely, Elizabeth Carnes Flynn, Assistant Attorney General, Division of Open Covenant. Do you want me to read an email chain or can we just attach?
No, I think we're good.
It can be attached. I spoke with the
It's
Attorney
attached.
Generals to attach it to this documentation and be a part of the minutes, which we will have for you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
I just want to again, want to be squeaky clean and let the public know where they can access the minutes. If people don't know, that's where we're including it.
Y'all will y'all will vote on them tomorrow night. I think before the public forum actually starts, you'll vote on the minutes. Excuse me, and then I'll release them the next day onto the town website on the select board page under meeting minutes.
Thank you.
Gosh.
All right,
So there was no like penalty or anything.
no,
How much did this cost us?
That's a
There's no, that was future.
There's no what?
Your question was how much was fined
no.
No,
How much did
how much did it cost us to go through this for over a year?
the legal
to
fees?
The
all
legal
of this?
fees, yeah. Okay,
I don't have that number for you.
that's fine.
Anything else regarding this? All right, moving along to the warrant and the special town meeting.
Jane, can I suggest that you address 9.1 first, since that will be,
One.
that's the updated version of the declaration.
Except I told them that was at the end of the meeting and see if there's.
Do you want to do any of the other?
Who's here from the?
I do see Jack here.
Okay,
Oh, Jackson.
thank you. All right.
Serve and copies of the warrants and pass out a copy with the
Jack, is there a redlined version? Or, I mean, it's hard to tell if they're minor language changes or they significant without going through verbatim.
Can you just point?
simple information. It's not just.
Can you just point out in the resolution what has changed so that we can be aware of it? I mean, I can read all through this and I'm really kind of holding a blank here. Here. Okay, I don't have that, so I guess I'm gonna have to see that when I get it tomorrow. Where'd you get that?
Carolyn had sent an email.
And it's in board
Last
docs.
Yeah, so
Today, it's in board docs too.
yeah,
I'm on board docs right now.
Scroll all the way down.
No, it's on section 9.1. It's not under the warrant.
Is
So
it-
the warrant has the original. And then that's the revised in your hand.
it looks to me like,
I don't even have a 9.1
Yeah.
on mine.
Yeah, over here.
so I've read both of them numerous times. And it is, the content is basically the same. There's a few minor changes, but as Jack said, it's the format that's different. I appreciate what you've done, Jack, in order to mellow it down a little bit and try to, get people to understand that it's just a non-binding document, and I appreciate that.
So this is really for no action on our part other than informative, and it's for town meeting to decide next week, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
but because it initiated here, the first request was here. I wanted to make sure you guys addressed it as a separate item. And Jack, that amendment would be taken on the floor. I spoke with the moderator today. Correct. And we will make sure there's copies there.
Will we talk about it at the forum tomorrow?
Now that there's a revised version that's going to be presented at town meeting.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would it be possible, there are some people that do go out and look at the warrant in advance of town meeting, that won't come to the forum. Is it possible to get that revised version out there
Sure.
with the warrant?
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a problem with that or not.
No.
Do you want paper copies or online?
Well, I'm just saying, so if people go online, so at least they can find it ahead of time.
Okay.
Yep, we can do that.
Right.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Jack and Climate Committee, for all your work on this.
Thank you to us all.
Right, moving on to warrant assignments. Recommendation. Carolyn, I give this to you.
This is the agenda with the motions today. With the motions. And so.
Jane, would it be okay if I just made an observation?
Yes.
This is not pointing fingers or trying to assess blame or be angry or anything, but in the past, we've typically had versions of the warrant as it was going along. And I know we saw like an initial shell a long time ago, but what I realized when I finally got the warrant on Friday and saw all the numbers dropped in, and I have to admit I gulped a little bit when I got to the capital article in particular. And I gulped because not that I necessarily saw anything that was problematic, and we'll talk about all of this tonight, but I realized it's the Wednesday before the public forum tomorrow and only 1 week away from town meeting. And we haven't really talked about the town finances in any particular select board meeting in terms of where did we wind up at the end of last year? Free cash was submitted for certifications. What's the basis of the free cash? What are the components of that? How much with departmental rollbacks, which goes to the budgeting process versus one-time revenue? All of that. And then when I'm looking at the capital, I've got a lot of questions in terms of here's what's on here, but what's not on here. And, you know, in the past, we usually had at least a few meetings where we talked through kind of the context of all of this before we actually got to town meeting. The other thing I'm realizing is we haven't actually met with the finance committee. We used to have joint meetings with the finance committee. And so I'm looking at a warrant as a sitting select board member, realizing capital planning did their thing, which is fine. I mean, they took votes. The finance committee voted on this at a meeting, and we haven't even talked to either group about it. And I mean, for me, I just find it frustrating. And I'm hoping that, you know, as we roll into annual town meeting and subsequent meetings, maybe we could have a more detailed calendar so that the select board's brought along in the conversation and we're not, I mean, honestly, I just feel like a little bit under pressure to go ahead and vote tonight. And I made some phone calls and that, you know, between Friday when I read it and started trying to find as much information as I could. But it seems like that's something that we should be doing collectively and all have the benefit of conversations with department heads who are involved in this or other folks. So I'm just making a request that I don't, this just doesn't feel great for me right now.
Thank you.
But we did know what was on the agenda, what the town warrant was. I mean, we're not going into this totally blind on what was being presented by capital or our other budgets. We may have not, and we've had numbers given to us. Probably looks a little bit different than what we originally had, but we do have numbers before us. They do have the reserve and everything that else is in it that we normally look for and have.
But we got it on Friday, Joyce is my.
This is what we've had in.
Right, I know
Right.
what we've had in the past.
I'm
I've been
saying
here for 19 years, Jane. I'm aware. Thank you.
was pointing out this is what was on a previous agenda. So
Yeah.
so obviously then Carolyn and everybody involved in this did an awful lot of work to develop
Numbers.
the numbers for the town meeting.
Yes.
But for me, it's out of it. It would be out of context. I mean, again, in the context of the wider financial picture for the town. You know, I had somebody who saw the warrant online and started asking me questions about the Capitol. You know, I was able to answer them and respond to their concerns, but we should all know what's going on well in advance of special town meeting.
Yes, I don't have a history with the select board, obviously, but I believe as well that we should be having meetings with all the various entities that create the budget so that we can contribute if we feel necessary. The way this comes across to me is that everybody does their work and then we rubber stamp it. And I believe as well that we should be involved in the process.
Usually we have a joint meeting with finance prior to our town meetings, whether it be the fall one or the spring one, so that we do get together with them. I'm not sure why at this point why we didn't. I mean, we all did our own thing, I suppose, as you're saying, and we have met with them previously. So I mean, but it's not unusual. But before that, we didn't. So I mean, I've been in both shoes and positions. We had everybody come in. We've had tedious amounts of meetings in the past. I think probably everybody just tried to streamline this town meeting because we've had so much on our plate. But yeah, again, probably more meetings with finance committee who do meet with all of the departments and capital and everybody else so that we, you know, they're aware of what takes place and what needs to be done. And at that point, we actually didn't feel like we needed to have single meetings with everybody or have people into our meetings just to reiterate what they've already told the finance committee, who have, you know, really worked hard to put this budget together themselves. So I mean, it's not like they've missed a step in doing what they're supposed to do and keeping track of our budget and thing. And I'm sure finance has been in touch with our treasurer, our accountant, you know, knowing what monies are there. Correct, Linda? Do you have a comment on this?
I think it's a good point, and that because Carol and I sit in on the capital committee. And we sit in on the finance committee, that reviews the budget sections here. And I don't know that to put us in the position of being a conduit, is almost, I don't like to get in the position of advocating. I mean, I think these committees should speak for themselves. So perhaps when they've reviewed and they've completed, the capital planning committee comes in, reports to the select board. Just on that, it's not a review of the warrant every single time, the way we've done in the past, but come in and report on the capital warrant, capital article on the warrant, because it is a little different this year. And I think that's what Molly's probably reacting to. This is a little different. And Randy was there at that meeting too. So you have some representation, but that's not the same as having someone, or maybe it would be you, Randy, but actually structured in an agenda how to report back on amendments to the budget, from the finance committee, have a report back on the capital planning committee. And as far as the other about like the context, financial situation of the town and how you get that, I do those written reports, and I know it's likely to see the written report with numbers all over it and say, oh, thanks for your hard work, and then but you don't really understand it, you really didn't spend the time on it, or you mean to, you don't get back to it. I don't think it would take very many minutes for again, that to be an agenda item. When I have a little advance notice that come on in and would you bring that in and speak about where the town is at this point, where we stand with the budget.
And you have done that.
I actually have them, I can hand out tonight. I have the first quarter done where we are in the first quarter of 2023, but we don't really have a way of getting that across to you except for by sending it by email. Again, I'm not sure that I really have an opportunity to explain it to you, but if you want to make this something that is officially part of the agenda, I think that's something I'm always happy to come in. Always happy to come talk.
Well, I think equally important now that you're saying that, Linda, about bringing it to the select board. The other thing is it's an opportunity for the public to hear where we stand financially, right? I mean, I think taxpayers out there would like to know how we ended up the fiscal year last year and where we stand with collections right now, because that's going to help inform their voting next week as well. So, yeah, so I think Joyce was agreeing with me.
In a sense.
In a sense.
Well, yes, you have the information, but yeah.
But I don't feel like we need to have every single department come in and be in front of us to explain their budget. That's not what we do or why we said for them to go to the finance committee, present their budget. The finance committee does the budget. As you know, you were on the finance committee. But doing these other numbers where, it's the whole total picture is totally different than individual departments.
Yeah, no, I'm not advocating for every department rolling.
I hope not, because I wouldn't be in favor of that one. It's like
And I
double
don't think,
dutying.
I don't think anybody's here is saying that the finance committee, the capital committee is doing a poor job and we need to oversee that. I just think we need to understand, and to your point, you can give us a piece of paper, but it's better to be able to ask questions. Yes,
Okay.
but there's more to this than capital. There's finance committee too. So it sounds to me like the onus is on us to require or request that the various appropriate committees come before us once they've made their decisions so that we can discuss it, so that we understand where they're coming from.
Understand their thinking just in case we think something differently.
Right.
So it's, kind of worked out before we get to town meeting. And then if we agree to disagree, that's fine. That happens too. But
Right.
I think it would be useful to have it come to us in advance of closing the warrant, before there was still time for conversation about it also.
yeah, that'd be ideal.
And I know that numbers are worked on right up until the end, because there's always other data coming in, and the state, cherry sheet and all of those things. What we can get, it would be better to have something than to just go into it and say, this is what we were given. Does someone want to make a motion?
To do what? Thought we were going through these, so we can.
I don't think we need a motion. I think it's just a matter of
For future.
Oh,
for
no.
future.
No, discussion.
The agenda, if you could take that into account, that would be great.
It's just discussion at this
All
point.
right, here we go. Carolyn. Article 1.
They want you in the hot seat. They want you in the hot seat.
Why can't I do it from here?
Is that okay if she's
No.
there, Alex, or you want her, do you need her up there? Is she, Carolyn, is she okay over here? Or did you want her at the? Okay.
You'll show it better on the camera if you're sitting in front of us.
Did you want to pop up any of those numbers? Yeah, and do you want to? Can you have that on our laptop? I can see that. Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm sure. Just taking a show on the road and see, I love my Oh, I see you want me to do it, sure. Come on, open window. You want to, I'll see what. I thought I did that. Okay. Yeah. You feel it in the car. Do you have the one we have?
I should give you just a second.
They have a hard copy. I didn't know.
I don't think the motions need to be on screen. Those are for us.
I can put the warrant itself up then on the big screen.
So the good things. You want to go over it?
Well, that's what they're wrong. Oh,
No, I,
something that you want now to know. You want to tell us if you're ready with that as a form or something or?
yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, I'm assuming we're just gonna go through the warrant and then there may be questions that come up as we're going through this. And, yes, yeah,
You can have yours.
yeah, no.
No,
No.
the number.
We like you,
numbers.
You can do better than that, Linda.
The numbers are here, Linda. If there's anything that's different, then you can interject.
No,
How's that?
no. Okay, so we'll start with Article 1. These are adjustments that were made that were going to impact obviously this year. One, as I go through them, I'm going to go through actually from 210, 222, and 422. Those were a result of collective bargaining. The 3 years was up for those 3 unions, which was police, dispatch or communications, and highway salaries. So these reflect those increases for this year. I want to point out that the highway salary for that increase from negotiations, it actually was more than that, but there's one of the positions we are not replacing, that was the former field superintendent. After speaking with Scott, he feels that that position at this point right now is not needed. And so we used the extra amount from that to cover the increase. So that would be closer to probably 90,000. But we have decreased that amount right here. If we go back to the select board salaries, we had some temporary help to fill in for a position that was out on for health reasons. So that is covering the extra help for the sub and the slow, not slow, but that position did not come back full-time, came back part-time, and we were still covering it with some additional part-time staff. The treasurer's salary, that increase as well, that is, I'm going to put that together with the treasurer and the collectors because that is a request to increase the assistant that the treasurer, I'm sorry, the treasurer, I'm going to talk about, I'm sorry,
And
145 and 152. Those two positions, our benefit coordinator and our treasurer share a part-time assistant to help. But we have found with having two positions out this year with no additional support, they were out long-term health reasons, not having that a full-time assistant was detrimental. It really showed how vulnerable we were in having not another person to fill in those positions. So that is to increase that position that they presently share right now to full-time. The collector's salaries, the adjustment there is last year we had added 2.5 hours to the assistant collector to help with tax title. But what we have found is it's working, it will work just as effectively under the collector's position, and she works in that office anyways. So there are some similarities with the tax title and the treasurer's office. So that is where that adjustment in the collector's salary is, but it was taken out of the treasurer's. Town building property insurance, both town building property insurance as well as the benefits and accident insurance have increased significantly during the getting reinsured for this year, more than we had anticipated. Let's see. I think that is all of them for there. Any questions?
May I ask, are we going to vote as we go along?
The other part still is coming under the general revenue funding and then
Sorry.
the vote.
I would jump in the middle. Sorry,
No problem.
No, that's that we've got that.
that was Article.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about the general fund raises appropriate?
Table A1.
This is the funding for the increased budget. The increases that we went through, Carolyn's increases are just over 200,000, which raises the budget from about 19.4 to 19.6 million. And so therefore we had to revise the revenue chart to cover that additional amount. And the complete additional amount was able to come out of certified free cash. So from the annual town meeting, we have increased that by the full 219,000. It's coming out of free cash. So we restated that table from scratch, but the rest of the figures stay the same.
And what about the ARPA? The
The
ARPA,
ARPA stays at 400,000.
That stays
It
at
was
400.
400 and we're keeping it at 400. We're taking the additional amount completely out of free cash.
and what is certified free cash?
Certified free cash came in at $1,751,116 as of July 1. It's the end of this past year. That is about 350,000 more. It was 1.4 million a year ago, so this is higher than that. The amount that we are spending at the town meeting is 283,000. Do you all have the sheet that covers? Okay. And do you have two lines on for number 2, or is that just the one? Because I'll give you an updated one.
I'll take one.
Okay.
Please.
Let me just send it. It's a very minor change, but you'll see it's part of articles.
So the reasons for the high cash, we had about 800,000, close to $800,000 in additional state payments for meals tax and room tax and cannabis. So those are the amounts that we receive, those amounts quarterly from the state. These are the figures that, particularly rooms and meals, that drastically dropped during COVID. And that's what we used ARPA replacement funds for. And now it's come back, and it's come back with a boom. They've come back higher than we had anticipated and higher than we were getting before. So we were only able to project the amount that we had received the year before. So we received that extra 800,000. So that goes as an additional free cash. In addition to that, the spending within the budget was about $400,000 less than was budgeted. So you take those together and you're at the $1.2 million excess going into free cash. And then we have our usual regular rollbacks and other miscellaneous things that come in effective. We usually, I think we used to count on $500,000 to $700,000 in free cash. So yes, it's higher than usual, but we know exactly what it's for.
So the 800,000, then just sticking with so that's just the local receipts portion predominantly.
That's within local receipts. Yes,
And
we
by
call those.
law, we can only project a certain amount, which was based on pandemic numbers.
Based on the year before. It's not like we were limited the projection. We knew we were going to get the extra money.
Right.
We really
weren't
didn't.
sure.
We were hoping we were going
Yeah.
to get the what we projected.
But that also just being, clear thinking forward. Every year, we're not seeing that level of an increase in hotel and meals.
No,
This
this
is
was
just,
recovery.
we have a low starting point and then we have the recovery period.
That's right. It's
And then-
recovery and there is a rise, but it's a rise at the same level that it used to be. Where hopefully we will see a bit of an increase each year that our businesses will do better and will benefit from that.
Mhm.
But
And then the 400,000 less spending, so that doesn't include the departmental rollbacks? Or
that is the rollbacks.
That's the
That
rollbacks.
is, yes.
And is that, in part, that's because we had vacancies, right?
Right.
Right.
It's normal that we have that.
Mm.
There are some things allowed in budgets that we don't necessarily spend.
So that's not a higher amount.
I
than
think
you
even
are
small
receiving.
departments like mine will turn back $2,000 or $3,000 that we have planned for a particular use, and we didn't end up needing it after all. Well, for example, nobody was doing. So this year, we still weren't doing the traveling in this past year. So we put there's various amounts that are in the travel budget that then we're going to come back and they roll back. So I don't know if there's any. I don't know that we can tie any one thing in particular to it. I think it's the usual across the board.
And then the other 500 then? So that's like 1.2 million.
Right. I don't do the free cash calculations and there's
Yeah.
various things that go into, you know more about this than I do. Don't you? I thought you used to.
No, but I don't know what the numbers are yet.
This year. I'm not sure what goes into it. We always know that we get back. Yes, some of it is rollbacks, but there's always another, 300,000 or 400,000 that come from various things. I'm sorry, I haven't. I don't
So
know.
The accountant would have that.
Yeah, the
number.
So the
accountant
town
certainly
accountant has it, right?
yeah.
So is that something, Carolyn, we could just have available for town meeting? So that we have the details
Sure.
of that with us?
Mhm.
Like
We
what-
can. Oh, you want it
the
for next
component
week
parts
too?
of
Oh,
free cash,
sure.
yeah.
Sure. Oh, yeah, I actually have the worksheet that came back and I hadn't spent a lot of time with it, but I can talk with Lori about it and either she'll be at the meeting or I'll have a better understanding at that time. Yeah,
Okay.
we can find out what it is.
Make a motion to accept Article 1.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes unanimous. Article 2.
So this is some of the similar impact that we had with negotiations, because DPW is split between three divisions, water, sewer, in the DPW department. So 440, that is from the portion that is paid towards salaries for sewer with negotiations, as well as 450 for salaries and other expenses. We are anticipating a resignation of a long-term employee that will have an impact on buyouts. So that's included there as well. Hadley Media is when we hired our new director, he came at a higher rate and more hours. Any questions with those?
Make a motion to accept Article 2.
Second.
Motion by Grace, second by Amy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I
All those opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously.
What are we doing?
Article 3, the cleanup.
Cleanup articles, Article 3. These are moving from projects that were either completed and there was money left over, or because of the length of time, the money that was set aside for that project is no longer adequate. And instead of trying to, at this point, add on to that with additional requests, for example, the public safety complex, the Sallyport repairs, that needs to be kind of rescoped totally. So at this point, those funds are being transferred over to capital stabilization. Linda spent a great deal of time since I've been here the past 2 years, looking at all of our old capital articles that have not been spent, and working with all of the department heads and the boards to, if it's not going to be completed or there's not enough money, let's reallocate it or bring it back. And very successful at that.
And those are basically going to get turned around and put into the police, which is body cameras. Yeah, which are going to be
Yes.
funded.
Thank you. And then as well as 3.2, I'm just going to, it's the same thing, so you can still vote separately if you'd like. The school security upgrades, that project did fit the criteria for the new request. So this is partially, it's taking the money left over from school security upgrades from the special town meeting in 2018, and it's going to be contributing it to the new request for the school ceiling tiles replacement, which you'll see in the capital requests.
Make a motion to accept Article 3 and 3.2.
Okay.
Motion by Joyce, second by me. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes unanimously. Article 4.
So how would you like me to go through this? Any special way?
Well, at town meeting, we're going to go line by line, right? Do we do each item? Because we've done in the past.
So the finance committee has asked to do this as one motion, but we will have PowerPoint available to go over each request. So we'll present those, but it will be one vote motion. Yeah.
We want to go over them tomorrow night at the PowerPoint. We could do that also.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
I'll make a motion to accept the capital articles, which appear to be nothing no increase in taxes on those. It's borrowing and free cash, correct?
There's no debt exclusions. Right.
Right.
They are borrowing within the levy, borrowing paid from water receipts, borrowing paid from sewer receipts, and a few that are being paid directly out of capital stabilization, free cash, and water reserves, sewer reserves.
I'll second Joyce's motion for discussion.
Yeah, I would like to discuss. Why are we doing this as one article? If I was still the moderator, I would be deeply upset with this. I see a huge chance of amendments flying all over the place to remove one of these things from the whole article. I just think it's going to be a mess. But if that's the way it's going to be, we'll deal with it. But I don't like it.
The finance committee requested we do it all at once.
Mhm.
Does
Did they
the
say why?
select board have a choice about how that's presented?
This is,
It is finance.
And that would be one of the things that we would discuss before the warrant was finalized as the select board, so that we could talk about something just like this.
Yeah, and so you're saying the finance committee decides how the article is
Well,
voted on?
it wasn't before the capital. We didn't discuss it specifically at capital, and when the finance committee went over it, it was written. This is what they discussed.
And
We
could
certainly can
people in
have
town meeting for us.
backup motions and break it out. We can be prepared to do it differently. Unless you're requesting unless the board is requesting that it be done differently. I mean,
Well, I hear
I'll leave
Randy
that to you.
saying that if someone objects to one item in here and it's uniform, if you will, across town meeting, then the whole article will collapse.
It
Whereas
could.
if we do them one by one.
Yep. Yep.
Will not all go down with one item.
Yeah, so given that it was a 5-0 and a 4-0-1, did you guys foresee any potential in disagreement from anybody in town?
Absolutely. Think about the last town meeting, Amy.
The capital.
One of the items is on here because it went down because there was a discussion on town meeting. And
We have to change
The
it.
capital planning did not talk about whether this would be one article or multiple
So what does that
articles.
mean? So if they do it
So
separately,
it's only,
Wow.
it appears that it's finance committee's
I posted it as
uh,
one article.
choice at this point in time. And if we, as a select board, have the option to change that, I would make a motion to make each item an individual article.
is there anybody from Finance Committee present tonight?
Give me just a
You know,
second.
Because I'd like to understand their thinking at least.
Mhm.
If they
But we
decide.
don't have to do it all at one, and actually, we meet with the finance committee prior to the town meeting next week. So.
We were actually
So
getting
we
ready
can
for it.
actually.
We were
say
doing
that-
separate motions in anticipation. So I think Amy's watching on YouTube. She may not be in it, so I told her I might call out to her if she hears me, so she may sign in.
Okay, I'll keep an eye
Yeah.
out. Nobody is in right this
Um,
moment.
And then another question that I'm sorry. Were you gonna keep going?
No, I just, if we have the option to make this individual articles, I will make a motion to do so, but I don't know if it's appropriate or not.
I think we could make the motion. And then if it's not appropriate, it will be discarded. And if it is appropriate, it will be amended.
Okay, then I will make a motion to make Article 4 capital articles, each item an individual article.
I'll second that.
A motion by Randy, and a second by Molly. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining?
I'm gonna abstain until I talk with finance.
Oh,
From somebody, yes.
not you yet.
So
You're
302.
abstaining? And you're abstaining?
I'm abstaining.
Joyce and Amy are abstaining.
Then just for clarity, I got a phone call about the wording on just the raise and appropriate language. Someone called and wanted to make sure that I confirmed, this is kind of cut and paste language from previous articles. And it refers, to a transfer from sewer impact fees. But we're not touching sewer impact fees on this. So I think that's something we just want to make sure is clear at the forum and town meeting. Because there's some people who are very sensitive
Oh, it's in the
to
article.
how sewer impact fees are used. So we want to make sure that's clear.
I think I have to go back to the previous thing because I don't think I'm actually able to abstain. I think you have to say yes or no unless you have a real reason. So I guess I would have to say no on splitting because I can't abstain from it, right? You can't abstain unless you have like an actual reason or conflict of interest, to which I do not have. So I don't think you can just abstain without. I think I have to say no, right?
I don't think you have to have a reason if you want to
The
abstain.
reason would be that you don't have enough.
That you don't have enough information as a reason to
Information, so-
abstain.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Um,
news. No, I didn't think that you were allowed to abstain
Sure.
because you didn't want to be controversial or whatever. So I think you're kind of that reason.
That's a reason.
Jane, Susan Vlatsky has her hand raised to can I unmute?
All right. Susan, do you have something to add?
Give her just a second. It's cozy in here.
any one. Whereas each one of these items here, have, here, it's to a point where
Has become
you
more.
don't.
Imperative.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, and Sue, and I don't think, I mean, certainly based on what I know about the particular predominant items are DPW related, I think what's imperative is that, Scott and anybody else is present to advocate for and answer any questions that people have. I would hope that this would pass, in its entirety, but I think we're just talking about how to approach it, just in case somebody, because it can go the other way, right? Somebody can get upset about one particular line, and then next thing you know, there's a very split town meeting, and the whole thing would run the risk of going down. Is my concern.
Well, and well, when the were allowed,
Yep.
because somebody didn't want to do a roll.
Yep.
That's what concerns me.
Mhm.
Jane?
Yes, Linda.
Yeah, Susan's accurately conveying what I think what was expressed to at Finance Committee. I'm sort of remembering a little bit better now that they felt everything was so important that they wanted to convey that we need all of this. And I think there was a message in it from them. So, I mean, your points are, you've got your points to make too, but that was their reason.
It was both capital and finance.
Yes.
And we are prepared to address each one. We're going to have PowerPoint, and each department or committee that has requested something will have PowerPoint to go over as those questions come up. But
Will they have that tomorrow for the forum?
yes,
Okay, great.
Also, if I could say the fact that the motion groups it all together doesn't mean they won't be presented individually. It would just be, they certainly can talk about each one and then move to the next, and then move to the next, and move to the next.
that's how it would be perceived.
Right. So it will all be addressed, and then the motion to cover everything might still be a good way to approach it if there's general agreement. So,
So we currently have a motion that says that we want to do them individually that
Mhm.
passed. Do we want to change that or leave that standing?
we're gonna
I mean,
be prepared to-
I want to leave it standing, but I think
Yeah.
we need to find out from town council who even has it's not clear to me who has the authority to change it. I honestly thought it was the town moderator. I mean, I sat on finance. I don't ever remember finance dictating how the
Right.
the motion went. It was a conversation. I remember either you or Kirk or Brian in the past would say, somebody would stand up at town meeting and say, can we take these individually?
Yeah, or it's always, in my tenure, it was always individual.
Yeah.
And again, I hear what everybody's saying. I agree that all this stuff is very important. We need every bit of it. But I just envision somebody not wanting one thing and proposing an amendment.
Mhm.
And then I see that as turning really ugly
Mhm.
in terms of just getting it all understood and straightened out and all that stuff. So that's what makes me nervous. And I agree, again, we need all this, and I will advocate for every single one of these. And hopefully the people at town meeting will agree that we need all this.
Mhm.
But to somebody's point, we don't want to lose it all because somebody's not happy that we're going to spend whatever on a whatever.
We had all discussed this afternoon that we felt we had to be ready because we know that all motions have to be in writing. So we have to be prepared for Plan B anyways.
Sue would like to speak again. Sue?
And honestly, I think what we is, present an amendment to take an item rather than pay for more.
If I may, I will contact Amy, I will contact Paul McCretsky, and I will contact Kirk and say, this is the discussion last night, and get their feedback. But I think Kirk's is probably the one who could make that decision. And we'll make the changes as he recommends, but
And to Molly's point, find out if we actually have the authority to change what's that aspect of the warrant. And we have a posted meeting for tomorrow night. If you can get all that information, then we can
oh, yes.
straighten it out. straighten
Priority.
it out.
I don't think the forum needs to have the motion, so.
No, I'm just saying
Yeah.
for town meeting's sake. We're gonna meet tomorrow night, so we can adjust this thought process if we need to.
I see. Dan Zadonic would like to speak.
Dan?
They don't want one thing they can take out.
The way it's been, Dan, is that each motion was acted on individually. We didn't discuss it and then treat it as one whole article at the end. Each one was voted on individually.
That kind of was the intent.
Yeah, I think
That was the
what you're talking about, right? All right, well, find out what you can for us, please, and we'll.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So will we have this discussion before the forum?
Well, do we want, I mean, and do we want to vote?
I think we can vote on the article. It's just the procedure that we're discussing.
Right.
I don't think we have an issue with the article itself,
Correct.
just the procedure.
Okay, so we're leaning on you because like Scott's not even here tonight to talk about anything if there were questions, so. Some of you guys have fully vetted everything and
Yeah, I mean, he's talked about all this stuff. It's, all the equipment that he's asking to replace is stuff that is either at or very near the end of its life. They can't get parts. It costs too much to fix. The Vector, for instance, that we have doesn't work. And apparently that's a very useful machine. An interesting note on some of these 1-ton trucks that are on here is that right now there's a 2-year wait before you can get one of these things. So if we approve the money for it on the 27th, it won't get spent until the truck comes in. Is that correct?
Mhm.
So that could be 2 years from now. And some
We
of the
won't
other
borrow
stuff
until then.
is in a similar situation. There's 1 or 2 things he thought that he could get relatively quickly, but everything else is on, I don't want to call it back order, but it's just crazy.
so Randy, the only other question I have then for capital planning is, were there other items that were not moved forward for approval?
No.
So this was
Me-
everything that
me-
was,
Everything we have, yeah, this was everything that was brought before capital planning.
okay.
Right,
All right, Article 5.
Article 5.
I'm sorry, so you're not gonna vote on it tonight at all?
Yeah, I think I'll make a motion to approve.
Article 4.
So I'm sorry, actually, it was motioned by Joyce, Molly for discussion. So you actually just need to take the
Oh,
vote. I'm
great.
sorry.
Okay,
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
yeah.
I
Opposed? Abstained?
Thank you.
Okay, Article 5.
These are prior year bills from FY 22 that did not come in until after July 1st. By law, we cannot pay bills past the fiscal year. They have to go to town meeting to get approved.
Motion to approve Article 5.
Second.
Second by Amy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Unanimous. Article 6.
That is CPA extensions. That is, if you remember, their articles now say that it has to be completed within 2 years. If not, you have to come back for an extension. So that is the library window and bracket and Hockenham Cemetery fence to be extended.
Motion to accept Article 6.
Second.
Motion by Joyce, second by Randy. Any further discussion?
Aye.
All the-
Oh,
Go ahead.
That's the question first.
Yeah.
No, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Unanimous. Holly, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I
Okay.
just was waiting to say.
She
yes.
just couldn't wait to say aye.
Okay, Article 7.
So the next few ones are all CPA requests. So I can read them, but I can't answer any questions on those. Those would go to CPA.
So this is just funding that was approved that was
Similar-
not used and is coming back.
Similar thing that
Yes.
Linda does.
Yes. Motion to accept Article 7.
Second.
Motion by Joyce, second by Amy. Any further discussion?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstaining? Unanimous. Article 8.
I actually can, because I've been working with Alan on this one. This is for, actually, it was a couple alternates that were on the original scope of work that came in over what was allocated for it. So this is with the hopes of being able to add a couple of those alternates to the
It's
Hockenham.
still CPA money, correct?
Still CPA. Yep.
Motion to accept Article 8.
Second.
Motion by Joyce, second by Amy. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Unanimous. Article 9.
Hopkins playing fields. That's a request from the schools.
Motion to accept
Still
Article
CPA.
Still
9.
CPA, sorry.
Second.
And just for discussion, so
Yeah.
this is the first time I think we've ever done.
Yes, I think that's important to say.
Yeah, it's really different from what we've
Say
ever done
again?
at town meeting. We're borrowing. We've discussed this before, but this is the first time we've ever put into practice the ability for us to borrow against CPA funds.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if you notice in the article language, you'll see funded through borrowing of $750,000 from the CPA. So
They're leveraging the excess funding that is in the account, right?
They have sufficient funds to pay it
Right,
outright, but.
But they're
they are
leveraging
going
it
to hold on
to
to
borrow,
it,
yeah, right.
for other purposes and pay it back over either 10 or 15 years. David Eisenthal did go and speak with them at their meeting, and he's provided updated schedules for them based on the amount that they decided to borrow. He encouraged a certain amount of borrowing so that they would maintain the capital in the account.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a compromise vote that they ended up with. So we'll see how it works out for them.
And Linda, at town meeting, I watched the presentation by David Eisenthal
Mhm.
when he did that, but I'm sure there'll be people at town meeting who'll have questions. Is he going to be there, or will
He
CPA
wasn't
or you?
planning to be there. I think that Mary Fair has an excellent grasp
handle.
of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he presented it one week, and I think they took until the next week to sort of to think about it and then discuss it. And well, then I wasn't at the second meeting. I know Susan was, but I think they understand.
People
And
ask
you're
the
wanting to
terms
know
of the
whether
borrowing
others,
and-
yeah. Um, I can't remember what you're asking about explaining it to, whether David Eisenthal will be there to explain it to the taxpayers.
just somebody.
Is that what? Yeah,
So
yeah, I wasn't expecting him to be
if
there.
this gets approved, then would you be the one that
Yes.
goes out and does the borrowing?
Yes,
And so you would have a general idea at town meeting if somebody asks of Kamali's point, the terms, the payments, blah, blah, blah.
yes, we have schedules, we have payment schedules, of being conservative, I think estimate at 4.25% interest, which is probably a little high. But we don't know, they won't be borrowing this year, maybe borrowing next year. And how much it would be each year, depending whether they borrow for 10 or 15 years. So yes, we have those scheduled. I don't have them here with me, but there is a significant difference between the two, but there's also a big difference, like $100,000 difference in interest, which is why they want to make it on the shorter side. So I think they've considered all of these points. That's not going to be a town meeting decision, though, whether how we're going to be doing the borrowing.
Right.
They just say whether we borrow or not,
Right.
and it'll be borrow 750,000. But I will work with CPA to make sure it's that this is the way that they would want it. I wouldn't put them on a longer or shorter term than they were comfortable with.
And why was CPA not unanimous on this?
Because it's a committee.
Two abstentions, isn't it?
Yeah, I was one of the original members of the CPA, and quite frankly, I'm amazed that they voted to do this because we always said we were never going to do that.
Never is used anymore.
Right,
Andy.
but I think that to Linda's point, it's good to have X amount of dollars in the bank, so to
Yes.
speak, so that if a project comes up that needs to be funded, the money is there. So I don't think this is a bad idea, and the
Right.
payment comes out of the CPA fund anyhow, correct?
It is within the stream of income of what the payments are within. They're like $70 to $90,000 a year, depending on which way they go. It's my best memory of it. But that is well within the stream of income
Yeah.
that CPA takes in each year.
Right.
So they're not going to be going down further into the principal to pay it each year. They're not. It's going to come out of
They
the
always have
general. So
new
they'll
money.
be able to maintain
Right.
a stable principal, and that affects our bond rating, the amount of money that we have set aside. So that's a factor as well. You asked about it. That too is an abstention, not an anti. Right, it's
Okay.
4-0-2
Thank you.
is the vote. So I don't think anyone present was against.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 9.
Second.
Motion by Molly, second by Randy.
I think I heard it.
It was already motioned by Joyce and seconded by Amy. So you just need to vote. If that's
Is there
okay.
any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All those abstaining? Unanimous. Article 10.
So I'm going to address 10 and 11. It came to my attention today that both of these articles do not need to be on the warrant, and it was a misunderstanding of that it had to be on the special town meeting. So every year after the annual town meeting gets voted, the AG office looks it over, makes sure all the articles are in line with what they need to be. So a letter came back saying that a section of the plastic reduction bylaw order, a small section needed to come out because it conflicts with the state substantive law. So it needs to be disapproved and deleted. That I'm still finding out, but town council, I'm waiting for a response, but she and I were back and forth today about that one. That may be a motion, that may be to take no action. And that would get handled at the next town meeting. Article 11, the same thing, that is a zoning. I know for sure that should not have been on there, and that is will get handled with the planning board. So those both will have the recommendation would be to have no action. And Kirk's aware of that. I've gone over the warrant a few times with Kirk. So Kirk will be aware of that. So you don't vote on no action. So.
Okay.
And Article 12 was our earlier agenda item about the climate change emergency declaration that we will read to the new form.
So
This is actually, I think people need to know, it is a non-binding vote.
Yes.
And we don't need to take a position, right? We would just vote on town meeting like everybody else, right?
Correct.
Um,
It's non-monetary, it's not.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
That you wouldn't, because it's non-binding, you don't vote on. it. Okay.
We're done with the warrant.
Hmm?
We're done with the warrant.
We're done with the warrant.
Moving on.
We did not do designation of articles.
All right. Designation of articles.
Oh, great.
Were there articles that you would select board?
So that, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Joyce, for the finance one, you would still, each article, it would be assigned to a select board member. Because I did check with Kirk and he reads the motion.
right.
So it's just if there's questions about it. So the finance committee will also have somebody to answer questions as well. So
So the biggest concern, Joyce, would be the capital articles, do you think?
I would think so,
Yeah.
yes.
And you're on the capital planning, so I would think.
Tag, you're it.
So I'm it.
You're it,
You're
Randy.
I figured I would be.
Article 4 for Randy.
Okay.
And the budget's usually the town administrator, right?
Correct.
Or finance is not.
Finance and administrator.
no, I think Amy was going to do this one.
And I think those are the only two.
Yeah, finance will do the budgets.
No,
Oh, no, you said.
I'm
no.
gonna, no, I'm gonna do
Oh,
this.
you are.
I'm
Okay,
gonna
I'm
do
sorry.
this.
So those are the only two.
Hmm?
Those are the only two.
Yes,
CPA speaks for themselves.
Correct. And,
yes.
CPA handles those.
okay,
And I assume that the climate change committee will speak to the climate change.
Yes.
Yeah, the first thing they're gonna have to speak to is an amendment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, ladies.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Park and Recreation. I see Greg there. Go, Greg. You're on. Could you stop sharing screen, please? Whoever's got it up. Yeah, just a second, please. Thank you. Okay, now. Okay, Greg. So I have a question. The $25 per hour, is that for the duration of the program or for the time it takes you to do the work? Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, Greg, can you give me an example of what somebody might use the school for through Park and Rec and what it typically would cost?
Questions?
No, it sounds like Carolyn, there was agreement between you, Greg, and the superintendent.
There's not, there's not an agreement with me. I mean, we've spoken to it, but it's the select board's approval.
But I mean, generally, you guys talk through it. And
Oh, yeah,
see where you-
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, Sue, you had your hand up?
Yeah, my only concern is uninsured, groups that are going through you. Because if we don't have a certificate of insurance from them, getting the town of Hadley for liability, it all comes on us. So, Greg, we can have a conversation. Okay. Well, that has a business, and we're doing it. Or it's not trying to be. We're still having people go through parts of creation. So, I'll do it all. And, yeah, but we need to talk about it, is it, you're doing such good work, Greg, I don't, I want to be getting down on it. Be careful about what we open ourselves to life.
Maybe contingent upon-
Well, to that point, Sue, I'm reading this letter that says that parties reserving through our department receive the benefit of not being required to have their own insurance as it is covered by our department. Is that different than what you're talking about?
Randy, I don't know what you're, I don't, what you. Not,
Okay, well, this is a letter from Greg to us, and what it says is what I just, one of the things it says is what I just read to you.
It's in board docs.
Sure. No, I understand that, and hopefully what is written here is reality, but if it's not, you guys can get it straightened out.
So I'll make a, should we table it? Or
No, I think
make
that
a
they,
motion to approve subject to.
Contingent, yeah.
I find it quite odd anyway that it's coming before us and not going through the school department. Yeah, the town owns the buildings, but any of the programs that have ever been done, like CYO or soccer or outside things, they never came through us, the select board. So I'm kind of sitting here going, well, what's this all about? I mean, we never set really any policy. We, at the school department years ago, we set the amount that we would charge Park and Rec to use our facilities and charge them the hourly rate for the janitors and things of that nature, but we never, we never came to the town to approve these things because we always felt like at that point, and I know things change over the years, but I'm talking about usually anybody that uses our facilities with our permission falls under the town umbrella for insurance for buildings, but you know, maybe I'm wrong at this point, but that's what it used to be.
and an outside, entity choice, not so much. So if you allow it, they come under or.
Greg, how imperative is it that we vote on this tonight versus at our next meeting?
And can we have somebody look into our insurance and see?
Well, let's sue.
I know, but I mean, I'd like to have somebody. Insurance.
That was Amy's suggestion to table it until a subsequent meeting.
That's fine. Let's,
That we have to even have to vote on, or do we have to because it has to do with money?
well, no, we're not charging for the schools.
Well,
no.
Park
No,
Park and Rec is
our
our
articles on it.
Well, but the school department's our purview.
no,
You
we're
sh-
only having it because Park and Rec.
Is looking for money.
So I think that the school.
It's Park and Rec
department should be-
department who's
Yeah.
funded
fees.
The
That's not the
town
competition
department.
should say why are independent groups going through Park and Rec instead of directly through the school? Because that's what used to happen from what I hear you say.
We don't really have individual.
Well, like CYO basketball.
CYO.
Yeah.
Catholic in baseball.
Anyway, I think the idea of tabling this until there's more information makes sense.
Yeah, I'm in favor of you getting compensated, Greg, but just iron out the details a little bit more.
Okay, what additional information?
Well, we need you to talk with Sue about liability insurance for the town. And the other question I would have is, if in the past these groups went through the school, why have they changed to come through you? Just a question.
He said it's gonna be. Jan. And it's going through schools again.
Yeah, so that being said, I think so that being said, the insurance is a real issue, and if people are able to come through you and not have to pay insurance, that's a serious added value to what they're getting, and that should impact the fees being charged.
But wait, all right, let's put
Let's
this on the
table it.
table and continue it. When you have the data, let us know. We'll put it on the next agenda.
Sound good?
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
All right. DPW Building Feasibility Committee appointments. Carolyn, where are we on that?
So we are trying to get the a representative from the community, but we have not had yeses. So we are still looking for those two.
You should have one. He didn't.
No.
He told me he was going to do that yesterday.
So what I'd like to ask for consideration, just so we can, Weston and Sampson can start planning some of the outreach. If we could, we have 5, which is wonderful. That's an odd number. We're only waiting for 2 more. If we can continue to look. And if you have anybody that you think would be good, please reach out to them.
Or anyone out there? in the
Or just, or
audience?
qualified or interested. I hate to use the term good, because,
Not just
so.
anybody. You have to have some qualifications about what's going
And we need 2. So if we get more than 2, we'll bring them to the select board and you guys can make a decision. So, but if you would be willing to, appoint those that are either committee members or staff, which is Scott McCarthy, Gary Berg, Tommy Quinlan, Randy Iser, Andy Kopecki. And if you would be willing to start with that, so we could at least give the go ahead.
I'll make a motion to appoint the DPW Facilities Feasibility Committee with the 5 individuals that Carolyn just mentioned, with 2 community member slots pending.
Second.
Motion by Molly, second by Amy. Any further discussion?
To the 2 community members will have to get voted in at a subsequent.
Pointed in, yes. Mhm.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I need to quit quiet.
We're taking it. Do we, for the next thing with Board of Health, do you want the Board of Health Department up here also?
I have chairs for them.
Basis for them here
I
and
have
here.
one here.
Either one of
That's
them
what she
should
said.
be.
Good share.
I thought I was getting. I thought I was getting better.
Yeah, as soon as we get our numbers back.
2 members.
You're bad.
Whose bag is that?
It's my bag. How much?
Lunch. But you can take it home and have it any.
How are you?
I promise you're not contagious. I don't have a fever and I do not have COVID. I have tested. I just have a cough. I'm not offended. I'll just sit out here in the audience and enjoy it from it. Oh. Making easy. She's had.
We're gonna need that for interviewees. We need one there. Yeah.
And yeah.
All right, we're all here. So we're gonna call,
Yeah, one.
oh, we're Amy's not here.
You could call theirs too.
We're gonna call the Board of Health meeting to order. We'll take a roll call. Margaret Mastrangelo,
Yep, present.
Susan Mosler, okay.
Still a big, isn't it? So as a joint meeting, is Board of Health running it since it's theirs, or are we running it? As
You're running it
I'm
together.
Running it together. Would you like to start the candidates in any special order? All right, alphabetically. Emma Dragon, would you please come up to the center table with the microphone?
Voice for-
Well, wouldn't it be
Just
Joseph
hold on,
Boyd
hold on,
there?
reading.
Yeah.
I'm reading the list of.
You're saying you said alphabetically.
Oh, I'm sorry. My error, Joe.
Okay,
You're first. We're going alphabetical.
so,
Boy, are we all not with the program tonight, huh?
I'm reading what's on my list here.
does it make sense to have the other candidates not in the room at the time of an interview?
No, I mean, it's a public meeting.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
okay, well,
I
it's
mean,
just,
you could go out there and watch it on the phone.
It feels like two, is there?
oh, before we start,
Yes,
um, I have an appearance of a conflict of interest with Mr. Boydsworth. He is a client of mine. I talked to the Ethics Commission yesterday. Went through the whole process with them. They said that it wasn't an issue, just fill out the form that was required, which I did. I brought it to the town clerk's office this morning, so I just want that out there.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Joe, tell us about yourself.
Hey, good evening, everybody. For those that don't know who I am, Joe Boysker. I live at 6 Mount Warner Road. My wife Shelley and I own North Hadley Sugar Shack. This springtime, we are 28 year in business serving our, traditional pancake breakfast and producing maple syrup at our family farm and business. Grew up in Hadley my entire life, went to Hopkins Academy. Have 3 children. One who's my daughter's a U.S. Marine, and my son's a plumber. My youngest is still at a vocational high school. So my interest in the Board of Health is because I'm a business owner. I'm a Hadley resident. I've got some experience, obviously the food industry. Worked a year and a half at the wastewater treatment plant here in town of Hadley, so I have some interest. I need some knowledge with that stuff there. I think it'd be a good candidate. Business owner in town, know a lot of people. Know different business people, and I think I could add to the Board of Health. I'm also a volunteer on the Hadley Fire Department. ServSafe certified, which is not very hard to become, but I mean I'm certified. Another item about me, I'm a member of the Mass Maple Association. I was a board director for 3 years and became the president for a 3-year term. That entitled me go out to Boston during the maple sugar season, just to go there for a proclamation of, it's maple sugar season. Do a little spiel on behalf of, Massachusetts and the Maple Association. So, I've kind of been around and done a few things like that, but I think it's very important for some of us business owners to start stepping up a little bit here in our community and adding some, advice and getting on some of the boards. And so that is primarily, a good reason why I'm interested, along with what I think I can be helpful to our community with. I know a lot of farmers. I know there have been some incidences in the past. For example, let's say somebody is a newer member in our community, and let's say a farmer is licensed and put some kind of insecticide or fungicide or something on a field, and maybe a concern arises. Maybe I could be beneficial by knowing the farmer, asking for the MSDS sheets, material safety data sheets, to just see if what the complaint was it worth discussing, which a lot of it is worth discussing, but could we bridge a big problem just by asking the simple question, what was applied to the farmer? You know what I'm saying? To get back to the resident that had the concern and say, okay, we did a follow-up for you, we asked for the MSDS sheets, this is what it was. You should have a concern, or you shouldn't have a concern, you know, just, so I think I have some knowledge that I could offer to the board and our community. You know, to help out. So that is why I'm interested in.
Any questions from anyone?
Are we
Susan?
doing these interview questions or how are we?
We do have interview questions. Where are those?
They're part of board docs.
Yep.
I mean, is that how are we just rolling through these or were these here for,
Are we gonna ask them all at the end?
right, are we asking them all or?
Well, some of them he's already answered. Where? Board
They're
docs?
board docs,
I'm
they're the
in
3
board docs.
resumes and then the interview questions.
Okay.
Should be last
Oh,
year.
here.
Yeah. And Board of Health, did you have a process that you wanted to?
Well, I have a question that I'd like to ask each
Sure.
candidate. Joe, with the understanding that the authority and delineation of responsibilities for the Hadley Board of Health comes from the state of Massachusetts as opposed to coming from our local town government, what do you see as the primary tasks of the Board of Health? And what experience and training do you bring to work with those tasks?
So the experience, I guess, good, or what I would say, 28 years of being in business, serving food to the public. And I am aware that, you know what I'm saying, we are just enforcing and going by a, you know, state standard, you know, bylaws and laws. And we don't make them up, but, you know, we need to be here to enforce them. And I think common sense and knowledge of being in business for as long as I have brings a lot to the table, and what I see and don't see, or, you know, nobody's perfect. I've always learned every time my business has been inspected, I've always appreciated a negative comment or a issue if we had it, because that's how we grow and learn whether we're doing right or wrong. So I don't think, you know, like I said, 28 years of serving food to the public with no complaints under our belts and problems. Being in plenty of other establishments in our town, you know, whether it's from a farmer who bottles milk or produces ice cream to, you know, restaurants and things like that. You know, I think I would be a good candidate.
So Joe, I appreciate the experience that you do bring. A lot of what you're talking about though is done by a qualified health inspector, someone who's has gone to school for this. And in fact, we have at least an 18-hour a week position for someone who would do exactly those things. And, you know, as opposed to we set policy, we don't actually go out and do the inspections. So, you know, I think what you say is interesting, but I'm not so sure how much you would actually be going out. That's why we have a health inspector.
Well, that is correct. And also, I partially feel we should be doing some of this in-house. That's my personal opinion also, is I don't see why we shouldn't be helping out that inspector and seeing what is going on within our community. If we are acting as a board, you know, I think it would be beneficial.
I'm not sure I'm understanding what then your role would be. Are you saying that you think board members should be going out and doing health inspections and assessments and?
Well, I am saying I would think that would be an okay thing for us to be doing also, to be getting out, you know what I'm saying, and witnessing what is going on. I don't see anything wrong with it. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Any other questions?
No.
Oh, yeah, last one. So
let's see.
So, Joe, if you were in a situation where you had, it was a 3-person board of health, right? And there's a 2-to-1 split vote and you were on the one side of it, right? You were the underdog on the vote.
Yeah.
How would you handle that in terms of, carrying forward the will of the Board of Health at that point,
Well, it would probably depend on the situation of vote, what was, going on, what were we voting? Does that make sense? I mean, I guess
Well, one of the things with being a board member is, we all get fired up about stuff, right? But sometimes at the end of the day, you're on the kind of the losing end of things, if I can put it that way, right? So whether it's on the select board, there's a 3-to-2 vote.
well,
But we always say that,
certainly the best interest would be for the town to have a community for the health or wellness of whatever that situation. I mean, if you're referencing a vendetta thing or something, no, that's not. I'm saying, on.
I think, if I may, what she's trying to say is, can you still support the Board of Health if they vote against your position in something you feel strongly about?
Absolutely.
Is that what you're asking?
yeah, I mean, it's just, any board, it's a question we ask
Right.
on any board.
Right.
Right.
And I guess the one question, because you are a business owner and have a lot of activities that go on. So one of the questions was, which I'm just seeing for the first time, do you have the time to commit to meetings, hearings, and site visits?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Being in town all your life, you know a lot of people. So how would you deal with somebody that you've known most or all of your life, or even for a little bit of your life, that is violating, you had to go do an inspection if that was part of what you were doing, or in any part of the process, and they were doing something that you knew was wrong? How do you deal with it? How would you deal with that?
Well, obviously, we would have to explain, what are you doing? And this is, you're doing something wrong. And I obviously right now don't know the protocol of fines or what could come down the line, but obviously talk to that person or persons or business that if this is something wrong, you need to stop doing this, and this is why. I mean, regardless of the fact whether I know a person or not. If somebody's dumping oil in the Connecticut River, whether I know them or not, that's totally wrong. And you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the answer is, you'd be in a different position. Unfortunately, just like everybody on the board, everybody knows everybody. So there is that fine line of knowing everybody and doing what is right for the town, the community, and the board.
Any other questions?
I guess I'm a little, maybe I'm confused, but number 8 says you have the time to commit to meetings, hearings, and site visits. And it sounded, you guys do site visits.
No, we do not do.
You don't do site
We have
visits.
our health agent. That's the health
So
agent.
that seems like a
job.
interesting question to ask, if you can go to a site visit and it doesn't happen.
And maybe that's
Maybe that's
asparagus festival or a fair, and we've gone out with food product that there had always been a Board of Health inspector come out, greet you that morning, check out what's going on, what are you doing, and issue you a permit. And so that's where I think some of what I just spoke prior came out was growing up
Right.
with
We have there's training requirements and certifications for a health agent. And we now have someone with those qualifications who's working part-time for the town family.
So there isn't anyone with the qualifications that's on the board currently?
No, our qualifications, I have a medical background, but we don't do the sort of thing, so it's policy setting, basically, policy oversight of the health inspector. But basically, in terms of going out, what would happen is if there were a problem, then the health inspector would go out, do plan of correction, that sort of thing, talk to the person, because we're not into, shutting someone down. We want the public to be safe, and we want certain standards met. And so the health inspector's job would be to set up, for instance, that plan of correction, follow up with the individual. And then if, after a number of attempts, that would be something that would be determined by their goodwill, their effort, how much the owner is trying to make amends and, make the corrections. If there continued to be a problem, then that comes before the board, and then the board decides at that point,
fines,
what
there's public
fines or-
hearings, there's
right.
there's a whole
There's
process.
a process in place for.
But, much like the select board, the Board of Health is a professional board, and we're not the worker bees of the functions that the Board of Health is responsible for. We're in a supervisory, planning, visioning, and a larger overview of public health.
So let me ask a question about that. I agree with Joe. If I was sitting in that seat right now, I would be talking to you the way he was, based on what I know from the past Board of Health in this town. So are you saying that the previous board, and if I'm just asking the question, was doing their job incorrectly?
No, I first of all, I wasn't here. No. But I think times change, standards change. We're moving into the 21st century here as far as professionalization of the Board of Health in many different ways. We have a health agent. We now finally are getting set up for electronic permitting rather than having boxes of permits filed all around and in people's homes and basements. And we're really trying to professionalize and modernize the Board of Health, which serves the people of Hadley well.
And
Who does
Maybe
the Title V
disconnects
now?
though from the public. Is that what you were trying to indicate, that you would like to be maybe more connected with the public?
So if you don't mind, if I could speak real quick here.
Yeah.
I guess after 28 years of being in business, I have seen some different inspectors come through. You know what I'm saying? It was either the Amherst inspector covering for somebody, on our board in town and this, that. I really, really felt that our Board of Health had more hands-on in the community inspecting and doing. And because of learning what I just learned tonight, more of hiring out people who are highly educated or in that field of doing that. At this point, I would like to withdraw my thoughts of even being on the board. I thank everybody for your time tonight.
Okay, Joe, just a minute. You're correct in what the board used to do, but what has come down from the state has put a huge liability on the town if we are not absolutely dotting our I's and crossing our T's in terms of health.
Totally fine, totally respectful. I respect that. I just didn't realize how little in-house we were not doing anymore.
Yeah.
And I thought I could be an asset to this, but after hearing this, I will say myself, I would probably not be right to you. So thank you all.
thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe,
Thank
for
you.
coming in. Sorry you waited so long.
Consider the DPW building feasibility study.
What about?
You got another.
Yes, I know. Emma. Hey, tell us about yourself.
I am Emma Dragon. I'm also born and raised here in Hadley. Graduated from Hopkins, moved to Connecticut for a short period of time for my early adulthood, and then moved back to town in 2011. I now 12-year-old who is one. I have previously been on the Board of Health, which I had accepted a professional role with the town of Amherst as their health director. So stopped my seat here in Hadley for that, trying to involve conflict of interest. And then with this opening, certainly, and no longer being with Amherst because of this different visions, and a new opportunity that came up due to family concerns of mine and time and everything like that. This position was open, and I was interested in that based on my past experience. I'm super.
Why?
Who knows?
So I guess before we get too far into continuing this, we already had one candidate walk out. Are your expectations from anything that you've heard tonight, anything new to you, anything that you might have concerns about, or what are your expectations, I suppose?
So I think from when I joined the board in 2018 to now in 2022 is a totally different can of worms in terms of boards of health and what they can do regulatory wise, policy, liability, and everything like that post-COVID. I think that when I joined the board, we were doing the best that we could with the very little resources that we had. We were not doing things as robust as we could with more support for our people in town that aren't just residents, but that also come into our town as vendors for all our restaurants. With making sure that we were doing inspections at the appropriate cadence that we should be, and with the appropriate education to back that. So I mean, it has changed a lot, even in the last, because that's like 4 years for kind of what's expected.
Any other questions? Board of Health? Do you want to ask your question?
Oh, I guess I would just ask the same question. With the understanding that the authority and delineation of responsibilities for the Hadley Board of Health come from the state of Massachusetts, what do you see as the primary tasks of the Board of Health, and what experience and training do you bring to the position?
So in terms of previous training and experience, I did go through when I was on previously the Board of Health here, the Board of Health Academy through the Mass Association for Health Boards, which is free online modules for like housing inspections for awareness. And that way, when there wasn't an inspector, if someone was out or for some catastrophe or whatever, you could, what I'm just referring to as like pinch hit, or kind of go in there right away. Or certainly if there was a sudden housing concern, when maybe fire or another agency was going in for a safety evaluation, for a wellness evaluation. In my role with the town of Amherst, I got to experience public health and in a much more professional manner with other people, teams, departments that were supporting us in the way. And also got to experience a board of health outside of Hadley function in that more policy and regulation and future vision way of it. And actually learned that a lot of other boards of health aren't hands-in anymore because of the liability. So it was interesting for me to have eyes on that other part as well.
I would like to add too that I think what makes Hadley so unique is the fact that we have an incredibly busy Route 9 corridor, and many restaurants, food, whether they are soup, down from, small mom and pop establishments to, chain stores, chain restaurants, that sort of thing. And I believe, and Jennifer, maybe you remember this, but I think we had something like over 130 some odd food establishments and restaurants here in town. Now, we don't compare inside, and our population might be 5,000, 6,000, in line with, say, Southampton or another small town, but we
have more food vendors than Amherst, and we have more
Right.
food vendors than Northampton.
Yeah, and we don't have a
Who all
full-time health
who all
inspector.
have multiple full-time
That's why our taxes are
employees.
so low.
Yeah.
Right,
Thank God for
The-
businesses.
yeah,
The challenge with food especially is the Mass Health boards have like a flex of what a recommendation between 1 and 3 or maybe even 4 times a year that these institutions, restaurants, whatever you want to call them, should be being inspected. Obviously sushi being a very high risk one where they recommend at least 3 times. And then if you've had a challenging restaurant or business, maybe checking in on them more often, or maybe once a year if it's a low risk environment that hasn't had any poor outcomes with an inspection previously. I do agree with everyone on the select board and as well as the Board of Health that in my experience that having a connection to our community and being able to, I feel like I can't effectively communicate right now very well and formulate my thoughts, but being able to be a present voice to at least just listen to people, even if we can't give them the answer that they want to hear, because of whatever situation that they're on, most people just want to be heard and acknowledged. And sometimes you have to give them tough news, but no one else, I don't think anybody ever likes giving anyone tough news.
So what do you know about Title V?
So I went through the class and I need to retake the test.
We have our health
There's an
inspector is
inspector.
getting Title
It's Title
V
V,
certified.
yeah. This fall.
Our health agent.
Yeah, our health.
Yeah, because that is, a big major part of our town is Title
Yes,
V.
Yeah, he'll be
because we have
starting that.
more-
He'll be able to do that starting the end of November.
But
So
having
I've got a
awareness
question.
is important. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I've got a question for Emma, and then afterwards, I actually have a question for the Board of Health when we're done interviewing Emma. Emma, time commitment.
Yes.
So tell us why you would have time to do this.
Oh, so I love being on the Board of Health before. It's obviously a field that's incredibly meaningful to me and certainly keeps calling me back in terms of community and being able to serve our community. I do have 3 kids and a spouse, but with that being said, in the past year and a half, a huge amount of time that was being used for my parents and everything is obviously not being utilized at this time. And certainly in the legacy of my parents, they were just really looking forward for me being able to be more involved in the time when the time came.
Thank you.
Another question for Board of Health?
There's so many questions.
Poor Emma's still sitting here, but
Oh,
I guess a question for Board of Health. So, there's a bit of a pendulum swing if you've been around here for a while. So the pendulum swing to your point was previously, and I don't think this was uncommon in small towns at all, who couldn't afford or didn't choose to fund, we'll put it that way, health inspector, a full-time health inspector, a part-time, whatever. There were a lot of responsibilities wound up falling to some of the members of the Board of Health who were rolling up their sleeves, as Joe thought, when he came in here, because he remembers Dick Tessier in particular,
Dave Farnham.
and Greg. And so clearly part of that pendulum swing that I think has become far more obvious to the general population because of the pandemic is that the true role of the Board of Health, as you're saying, is policy making and kind of that oversight and bringing skill sets to the table that allow you to do that. That said, at the moment, we still we have a part-time health inspector, and I know that the inspections department in general, is call it pulling their hair out for lack of, I mean, they're completely, we're just not getting all of the inspections done that need to be done, right?
As far as the food inspections,
Yeah, I mean, just
we
in-
we will. The health agent just started and ended up having COVID, so we missed a
Mhm.
week and a half for that, and
Mhm.
then had parents coming from out of town. So he's been it was 2 weeks. We just hired him. It's been 2 weeks, but he's very professional. He's got a lot of energy. He's very positive.
Oh, yeah, I've heard nothing but good things,
Yeah.
but I guess my
Are
question,
we
Susan.
going to need more hours to do Title V, to do restaurant inspections, to do housing?
Mhm.
Yes, Molly,
Yeah.
we are going to need more. And I think we all have to understand that, these are trained, paid professionals.
Mhm.
I have no business doing food inspections.
Mhm.
I'm not trained in it.
Mhm.
The same thing with housing inspections. I mean, and I know none of, I live here, I pay taxes. I don't want to spend more money than we need to, but I think we also have to look at the revenue that these food vendors are bringing to the town here. And, if we want to have this busy corridor, they said 130, I think it's more. I think it's almost 170 uh, food vendors, over the period of a year. It is bringing a lot of money. That's our tax base here to this town, and our responsibility in Hadley, not mine, all of us, is to make sure that, that septic is done properly, to make sure that when somebody goes into the restaurant, that they're not going to get food poisoning. It's to me, it's the yin and the yang. I mean, if we want, which we do, we want all the food vendors, we want the restaurants, we want the tax money coming in. We we have a responsibility on the other side of that.
Yeah. Well, I guess my question was from your standpoint, I mean, you've got two sitting Board of Health members. Is there a reason that you wouldn't want somebody who, would be willing to get certified that could pick up some of that slack to be on the Board of Health? And again, personally, I think we've got plenty of work to go around for a full-time inspector at this point. I'm not questioning that.
I mean,
I'm just asking about.
I think that's a philosophical
Yeah.
question as far as, what is the role? And I think, Hadley's such a small town, it's hard to compare. But, if you look at Amherst, you look at Northampton, or, the majority of municipalities, towns in the state, the Board of Health, the boards of health are oversight, review, policy, that type of a role. Kind of like the select board here. You're not out doing the road work. And I think ideally you want on the Board of Health is, health professionals or people who have experience in public health and who can vision, where we want to be moving forward to. We are part of a shared grant from the state's been giving out grants to shared initiatives, and we are part of 16 other towns here in Western Massachusetts. It's based in Northampton, and there we just had a meeting today. I go to those meetings once a month for the consortium, and they're applying now for funds that hopefully will come through at the beginning of the year, and the plan would be to use those to support food inspections and septic inspections out here in Western Massachusetts, particularly in the small towns like Hadley, where we really do need the help. So, that may really take a chunk of the burden off of us locally through state funded programs. And I'm optimistic about that. But in the meanwhile, we have to get the work done.
Do we charge for inspections?
Yeah.
We do,
When
hope
you
so.
say, do we charge for like a
So-
regular food inspection?
Yeah,
not for
food
an initial
inspection.
food inspection.
No.
No, nobody charges.
No,
We
I- they're
have,
not allowed. I believe you're not
We-
allowed.
we have reviewed all of our permitting and charges though, and we've brought them to parity with the local, our neighbors. Some of them were under and we brought them up to parity.
So you don't charge for the initial, but if you have a follow-up, you can charge for that second
We are in
inspection?
the process that we do have a policy, but we're gonna revisit it and certainly not the first inspection and a follow-up. We'll have to discuss after that. If after a follow-up, they're still in violation, then I think we should have significant fines. But I think, we want to be more educational and Ben is our health agent is really very positive about that. Not going in to shut anybody down, but, having conversations and explaining and the whys and what needs to be done. And, then you go back and see if the work's been done. So.
So I was just gonna ask you one last question. I'm still in the hot seat. Sorry. So based on your current knowledge, past experience, and being a town resident here, what do you think the biggest priorities for the Board of Health should be in the next year?
So certainly food safety is one. Making sure that we're doing the inspections that the way that they were to be intended. And then engaging with whether it's state or federal partners. The FDA has a food grant that could be applied for to help support inspections and stuff like that as well. But really looking in terms of those new outsourced fundings for public partnerships to be able to support and hopefully advance the amount of support that the Board of Health is giving comparative to like other areas too. I think it does kind of bridge not just into food and Title V, because certainly a lot of the town is on septic, that's for sure. But also water, right? Water comes up a lot. Thank goodness we have a great water department. But that definitely is a concern. Fluoride is a regular theme that comes up every several years with questions. And a knowledge in terms of that is important, as well as those forever chemicals that they're looking for now in our water systems. And then I lost it. Was not lost. That's okay. That was enough, I think.
Any other questions or comments? So
There was another candidate. I'd stay online.
I don't see them.
Thank you. Withdraw.
So they were all informed that they would be coming back to this meeting. I did a follow-up and Commissioner Chowdhury said that we needed at least 50% notice. But as I understood, they were informed
He said, well,
a month ago that they would be called back to this meeting.
he needed to be.
So he is not here tonight. He had to work.
All right.
And that's all the information.
That's fine. No, that's fine.
So,
That's a wrap.
That's enough.
so given one candidate, do we vote? Do we approve? How do we
I mean,
go forward? What is the Board of Health's pleasure? Your candidate.
your recommendation, right?
Well, I would recommend that we vote tonight.
Okay,
Absolutely.
right. There appears to be one candidate. So may I have a motion? Second. Motion to approve is by Amy, second by Joyce. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
I'm abstaining just because I wrote on my form that I would not vote unless there was a tie, so I'm staying out.
Okay.
No tie.
No tie. All those, we did opposed, abstaining.
Aye.
All right, one abstention. Board of Health, are you voting?
Yes. Make a motion. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
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 Okay. Welcome back, Emma.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Moving right along, thank you, Housing Authority, for staying forever.
Thanks for everybody staying for so long tonight.
All right, the Hadley Housing Authority is here, even though we are removing this item from the agenda, which I had told Mary earlier. Because, yes, please do. We'll come up to the microphone.
Why are we removing it, Jane?
Because it's not at the moment in the board of the select board's position to appoint.
Okay.
We're not discussing it. You want to give them 8 hours. That's right. Since it's not on the agenda. It's on the agenda. We took it off.
Yes,
Megan. I'm Pamela Rogers. I'm the Executive Director of the Hadley Housing Authority. And this
Lisa Smith Breed, and I'm on the Board of Commissioners at the Hadley Housing.
So I did see, I got an email this afternoon, late this morning from Carolyn about the state appointee seat. And then when I looked, I saw this was on the agenda. So I'm here and I'm kind of wondering what's going on.
well, so the, we would like to have a complete complement for your board and commissioners. And it's been since the end of June when Kristen retired. And it appears that it's necessary for you to send a letter to the Department of Housing and Community Development saying there's a vacancy.
Which has been done. It's been done.
And when was that done?
That was done officially, initially in August and then officially with a letter CC to the town of Hadley
Okay.
on September.
To the town clerk?
To the town clerk, and
Thank
she
you.
also said received September 7th.
Thank you. Okay. Fine. So there is a person who is really interested in being a candidate for this position. He came by your office and Mary suggested he go see the town clerk. The town clerk didn't know what to do because she had no information from Department of Housing. And so the question is, do you have any say in how to encourage this appointment to be made?
So his information, Mr. Moser's information went, and there was also a second candidate.
Moskin, not Moser. Moskin.
Moskin, thank you. There was also a second candidate that was interested as well.
Okay.
But she received a phone call and was told that somebody might not be running next year and asked her to wait. But that his information packet went to the Department of Housing. I believe you were in contact with the Department of Housing, as was another member of the Housing Authority, not the chairperson.
Okay.
Who also contacted the Department of Housing without the consent of the rest of the board.
Right.
But his information has been given to Governor Baker's office, and it is in Governor Baker's office.
Okay. So we're just waiting for the governor to.
We are, but I am here. Richard Whitkos, who is the chairperson of the Hadley Board of Commissioners,
Right.
Could not be here, and he asked me to speak on his behalf. He's very concerned about the emails that are going around back and forth through the select board, through the town administrator's office about this position and about other happenings of the housing authority. It's actually shocking to see the Board of Health here today because the Board of Health is very similar to the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority is an independent, autonomous government agency. We do not fall under the town of Hadley. With the exception of our elected officials, I'm not in your budget. We're not in your budget. You can't tell it. We can't follow your rules. We have to follow the rules of the Department of Housing and Chapter 760 CMRs. That's what we have to do. And there's been a lot of interference, and we need that to stop. And Richard is requesting that we have a joint meeting between the Board of Commissioners for the town of Hadley and the Select Board.
That would be fine.
I'm sorry, why did you say you were surprised to see the Board of Health here?
Because we just had Risa that was appointed, and the Board of Commissioners for the town of Hadley were not invited to participate in that appointment, and they should have been.
the Board of Commissioners for the,
For the Housing Authority.
okay, sorry. which is-
Yeah, no, that's
yeah,
okay. 'cause it's
okay.
different.
So many boards. Okay, yeah.
What email?
What do you mean?
That's the
There's
question.
lots of emails.
Oh, there's lots of emails.
There's lots of emails.
No. I didn't get any.
No, they're not coming through all of the selected.
Oh, I was like, did I do something wrong?
No, just
You're
some.
going to the town administrator or am I being CC'd?
No, they've come to you. They've come through.
But have I responded on behalf of the?
I
select
haven't
board?
gotten all of them. We are preparing a freedom of information request for the town emails. And for some people's personal emails, they're coming through personal emails as well.
That's probably very inappropriate. I mean, I'm new to the Board of Commissioners. I've taken the open meeting law training. I've read the Board of Commissioner manual. And yet we have one Board of Commissioner member who is violating the open meeting law by having contact for what's it called, deliberative decision making. And then Ms. Nevin-Smith is getting CC'd as well on town and personal email. And I'm very uncomfortable with it.
So as a point of order, this part of the topic was not on the
Right,
agenda. I would,
okay.
I would ask
So-
that you would have the joint meeting on an
Let's have a
agenda.
joint meeting.
Okay.
We will work and set up a date.
If I can add too, I do believe too, if these type of topics are going to come up, that it should be a special, an executive session meeting because they
It
do.
does not fit the criteria.
So if they do have, they are special municipal employees and they have rights.
It does, what you're discussing right now does not fit the
Okay.
criteria for executive session.
Okay.
It would have to be an open session.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you.
I'm off the hook on that one. I didn't do any.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me.
An administrator report, is there anything we need to know that's critical?
Just real quick, the trade show for MMA, the annual meeting and conference is on June 20th and 21st. The town does cover those some of those expenses. So if you want to go, just
20th.
Probably
and
let Jennifer
21st of
know.
January.
in person,
Where is it?
Yeah,
Heinz Convention Center in Boston.
And ask
I will look at my schedule.
There is a soft opening for Hadley on 10/22.
Free samples?
For what is it?
That wasn't in the announcement. Hadley's soft opening.
Hadley.
Hadley, the
Hadley.
marijuana
Hadley.
dispensary.
Their
Jesus.
soft opening.
I said I wouldn't be in a mile of it. Fortunately, I'm down.
The only other thing that I wanted to share, because I knew it was going to be a long meeting, but Brandy Phil contacted us to let you know that the Shade Tree Committee would like to hold a tree dedication planting event to replace 4 trees on the common on Sunday, November 6th at 1 p.m. They have 4 trees being donated, and they would like to dedicate a tree to Jean and George Dragon Baxter, John Kieris, Claire Yazurski, as well as another tree for all of the town employees. So they wanted to make sure that that was announced.
And they're replacing existing trees that have left us.
Is that a question or are you telling?
That's that's a
Okay.
question, because that's what it sounded like you said. They're replacing 4 trees.
It says replace 4 trees, so.
Okay. I am not here on the 6th of November. I hope someone from the select board can attend.
It's a weekend, right?
Yes, Sunday.
Probably. I went last year.
Okay.
A little chilly, but I went.
I'll do my best.
So I was just thinking, I remember that was between work.
All right, we still have an executive session.
We have more announcements.
Oh, more announcements. Announcement.
Okay, so trunk or treat, which is next weekend at the
Police department.
safety complex, 5:30 to 7. And then there's also the Rag Shag Parade next week, Park and Rec from the Legion to the school to the Legion. Rain, he'll just be at the Legion. And let's see, I have some passings. So I'm going a little bit out of context because I have some that are not Hadley residents, but they have been known to Hadley residents. So we had the passing of Janet Slovatka, She was a principal at Hopkins Academy for many years, and I know that she probably has still some ties to Hadley. So our condolences to her husband and family. The passing of Richard Sullivan, who was actually one of our superintendents for a number of years. He came in per diem and ended up staying quite a while. And the fellow was quite a penny pincher. You would like him. So condolences to his family also. He's part of the Sullivan, D.A. Sullivan from Northampton. We had the passing of Mary Murphy, who is Peg Jekanowski's mom. So condolences to Peg and her family also. We had the passing of Nancy Russell. She's a town resident. And so we send our condolences to her sons, Todd and David, and daughter Julia. And then we had Claire Uzerski, who was a long-time member of Hadley, and she was also a big leader of our Hadley Mothers Club for a number of years before stepping down and whatever. I actually was in Mothers Club at that point, so that's how long ago. I'm old. So condolences to her son Jerome and his family, and daughter Maureen, and Waskevich and her family. So quite a list this week, but we do share in their sorrows for this week.
I have two fundraising announcements. One from the Friends of the Lake Warner. They're having a concert on Sunday, November 6th from 4 to 5:30 at the North Hadley Congregational Church. And the Friends of the Hadley Council on Aging are having a wine tasting on Friday, October 28th at the Senior Center from 6 to 8.
Trick or treat.
After you treat, you can come and have a glass of wine.
Need it by then. Okay. I'll make a motion to go into executive session, not to reconvene in open session.
Second.
May I have a vote? All those in favor?
Right.
As chairman of